Alright, so today I want to talk about the Holdback ball python. You may be shopping around for a ball python, you may run into one that's actually listed as a holdback. And the thing that kind of brought it to my attention today, I was actually over on one of the big reptile forums looking through all the questions and comments, and someone posted a question. They were talking about, they actually were thinking about buying their very first ball python, didn't know anything about genetics, and they were thinking about buying this snake that was listed as a pastel holdback, and they were wondering what in the world is a pastel holdback, and it gets a little bit confusing. As a matter of fact, a lot of people kind of chimed in, and I was kind of surprised as far as different people's interpretation of what a holdback is. So most people know what a pastel is. It's actually a co-dominant gene that brings in a lot of yellow in the snake. So if you actually breed a pastel to something else, 50% of the offspring come out as pastel. But a holdback isn't a gene, and essentially what a holdback is, it is the snakes that you're actually going to hold back for future breeders. So say for example, I actually produced about 100 ball python hatchlings in my collection, which is pretty average as far as what I produce here in my reptile room. I actually go through and kind of pick out a certain number of holdbacks for future breeders, and usually it's the cream of the crop as far as what I'm holding back for future breeders. And it's kind of interesting, when I first started in ball pythons, I think I held back too many snakes and too many duplicates of those snakes, and you get to the point where you fill your whole rack with all of your holdbacks, and then the following year you actually produce some more ball python hatchlings, and you're like, all right, I need to get rid of some of these holdbacks, especially if you're actually using females, because the females can take 2 to 3 years before they actually produce. So a lot of times you hold back a whole bunch of snakes and you're not really thinking about the future as far as filling your rack, and then the future years getting more and more hatchlings, and then you have to sell some of your holdbacks. And that's kind of what I ran into. I sold quite a few holdbacks, and that is, sometimes you'll actually list them as holdbacks and sometimes you won't. I actually saw someone kind of replied to one of the questions on that thread, and they said, no, the holdback, essentially what that is if you produce a really incredible hatchling that is really spectacular, you can actually list it as a holdback, because that is the one you would potentially hold back, even though you're not considering holding it back, which I thought was kind of a different interpretation of a holdback. Usually it's, you're holding back all these snakes, and usually when you buy a holdback, it's one that you've had for a while, and it's kind of a juvenile ball python, so it's bigger than your typical hatchling as far as what I would define a holdback. So as far as selling a holdback, it gets a little bit, I'd say it gets a little bit complicated. So essentially, like in my collection, I'll have a whole bunch of snakes that I'm raising up in my grow out rack, and if I run out of room, I'll actually sell some of those. Another reason that I'd sell a holdback is because, especially like in my situation, I'm breeding ball pythons full-time and doing YouTube, and let me tell you, my money every month goes up and down dramatically. Sometimes I have really good months, and sometimes I have months where I'm struggling, and it's kind of nice to have a whole bunch of holdbacks, because if I'm struggling for money one month, I can actually sell some of my holdbacks to free up some funds, which is another reason that a lot of people sell their holdbacks. And this year it was kind of interesting because I produced a bunch of snakes, and I think I labeled about 10 ball pythons as holdbacks through my hatchling rack. And I got to the point where I was kind of looking at my finances, and I was looking at my rack space too, trying to figure out, all right, can I really handle all these holdbacks? And the problem is if I would have held back all those holdbacks, I get to the point in my collection to where I'm running out of space, was pretty much the number one thing as far as, holding back ball pythons. So I pretty much decided that every year I'm just going to hold back 2 ball pythons out of all the ones that I produce every year. And let me tell you, it's pretty hard to figure out exactly which ones you want to hold back. And I'd say most people, when they first start in ball pythons, as a matter of fact, when I very first started in ball pythons, I was thinking, all right, I need to buy 1 male and 1 female. And that's how I started, buying a male and female in pairs. And then later on, you figure out, oh, all right, I just realized that 1 male can actually breed 3 or 4 females every year. So then a lot of people are like, all right, I need to get rid of some of these male holdbacks that I actually have, because I don't need that many males. And I've actually got to the point where I have so many females, you get to the point where you just want more and more females, and then after a while you actually run out of males because you need a male and a female to breed them, and you don't really want to stretch your males out too far. I'd say probably only want to breed it to 3 or 4 females. So what I actually did this year is I held back 2 males. I had some really spectacular females, some het desert ghost stuff that was really spectacular. But kind of the thing I'm thinking about as far as the future, I'm thinking, all right, if I hold back some snakes, what I really want to hold back is some of my visual desert ghosts or my visual pieds. That is kind of what I want to focus on going forward in my collection. I didn't produce any this year. Well, I produced 1 visual desert ghost and I decided to sell that one. I pretty much sold them all except my 2 males. And the problem is if you hold back too many year after year, you get to the point where your rack becomes full of all your holdbacks. And then if you want to hold something back, you have to actually go through your collection. All right, what do I want to get rid of to make room for some of these holdbacks? And that's kind of the big dilemma as you move forward down the years. So right now I actually have I think it's like 6 empty tubs in my grow out rack. So if I'm actually producing, if I'm holding back 2 grow outs every single year, that's enough room in my grow out rack for the next 3 years. The problem is some of my grow outs, they get bigger than my grow out rack, and then I have to move them into my ARS 7030 rack, which is like the size rack for an adult ball python. So at that point, I have to start replacing some of my normals and stuff like that. I haven't got to that point yet. Or I can actually buy another rack, which I could potentially put another rack in here since I kind of rearranged some stuff. So actually what I want to do today is I wanted to show you my 2 holdbacks from 2020. These are 2 males that I produced here in my collection. They're pretty awesome snakes. So let's jump over and check out my only 2 holdbacks of the year. All right, so take a look at this. Here is one of my holdbacks. This one is not for sale. Let me tell you, it was really hard to figure out which snake to hold back. This one's name is Sparky. Sparky is a coral glow pinstripe, and this one is 50% het pied. So there's a 50% chance that this carries 1 copy of the pied gene, and it's pretty amazing how when they're really young, they're really super bright and flashy. If you actually looked at one of my previous videos, you notice there's a lot of oranges and the purplish background, and already it's starting to change. These really go through quite the transformation, and they actually get a little spot here and there. I'm not sure exactly how many spots this will get with the pinstripe. Certain genes will actually kind of reduce the amount of freckling. I'm thinking the pinstripe will probably reduce some of the freckling. You can see some of the little spots coming in here on this one, but this one's a really awesome snake, looking really good, has a really good start. Let's see if I can unball the ball python. That's why they call them ball pythons, because they're little balls, which is kind of crazy. And this guy, if I can get him out of here, he's like kind of freaking out. He's been doing really good. No problems at all with this guy. And take a look at that cute little face. Looking really cute. Doing really well too. So you really can't tell if this one has any pied. There's really no het pied markers. Sometimes on the normals you can actually see some tracks on the belly. This one you definitely can. This one is still on mice because I have so many mice. I definitely need to move this one over to rats sometime soon, but look at how beautiful this one is. Doing really well. And last time I actually brought him out, he kind of snapped at me last time, which was kind of surprising for a coral glow. Usually the coral glows are some of the calmest snakes that are really super mellow, and they don't really have an attitude like some of the other ones. Just look at how beautiful that is. Pretty awesome looking snake. Doing really well. And essentially what I have right now, I actually have a Coral Glow male, which is the first Coral Glow that I bought. That one is 100% het pied. And what I really want to do is get some more genes into the Coral Glow. So right now I actually breed that Coral Glow with something else, and I get half Coral Glows, and if I breed it to a normal, then I get half normal. So I kind of wanted to get some better odds breeding it to some of my normals. So this one, if I actually bred it to something else, I'd get Coral Glows, I get pinstripes, I would get Coral Glow pinstripes, and then I'd get, I think it's like 25% normals. as far as getting none of the genes in this combination. Of course, if it's, hopefully this is 100% het pied, which I'm not really concerned about, because this year I'm taking my Coral Glow and I'm breeding it to my visual pied female. So if I actually get some eggs from that pied and I get a Coral Glow pied, I'll definitely be holding that one back. And that's kind of the cream of the crop as far as that one's concerned. And then what I do is I probably sell my older Coral Glow and kind of replace that Coral Glow with this one with the pinstripe and then the other one with the pied, and just keep working other genes into the mix. Which would be what would really be nice is if this one was 100% het pied, I can actually work this into pied, get a Coral Glow pinstripe pied, which would pretty much replace all the other snakes, which is pretty awesome. You're constantly making new snakes and replacing old ones, and your collection is constantly changing. It's kind of crazy, but that is definitely one of my holdbacks from this year. All right, so take a look at this one. This guy's name is Pookie. Pookie is pretty much the cream of the crop this year as far as a bamboo combination. Look at how crazy that thing is looking. It's amazing how this really transforms the older it gets. It seems like this one's actually a bamboo, pastel, pinstripe, calico. So it's a 4-gene combination. And it's amazing how the calico, when you actually first hatch these out, it's kind of like a washed out, like white on the side, and the older it gets, the brighter the white gets, and it gets brighter and brighter until it's really super bright. And this one has kind of an interesting, almost like little repeating spots on the sides. I've actually never seen one like this. It's a really wild combination with the pastel, the pinstripe, and the bamboo and the calico. So usually when you mix the pinstripe with the bamboo, you get kind of a metallic looking snake that kind of has some bronze to it, especially when you add the pastel. It can look really super metallic. And then you actually add the calico and it kind of brings all the color up to the top. And kind of the weird thing on some of these, you actually have this kind of a gray stripe right down the side of this thing. It's almost like a charcoal gray, which is pretty interesting. And I found too on a lot of my bamboos and bamboo combos, every now and then I'll have this little orange spot. If you can actually see that little orange spot, it looks like someone spilled some spaghetti sauce or something, like a little splash of spaghetti sauce. And I've seen that like just randomly on some bamboos, and it's just part of the pattern. At first I was like trying to wipe it off. I was like, what in the world? Who is eating spaghetti around my snakes? But it's just part of the random unique pattern of these combinations. This one's absolutely fantastic. So this one, you know, this is actually Bobby's grandson. So the snake that I have around my neck at the beginning and the end of the videos, that is Bobby. So this one is I actually took Bobby and bred it to a pastel calico, got a bamboo calico, and then I took that and bred it to a lemon blast to get all the genes in this combination. Pretty amazing combination. If you actually look at the belly, usually the bellies on your bamboos are pretty clear. It just has most of the color on the top and the sides of the snake. I'd say this is kind of this is probably one of the wildest bamboos that I've ever seen in my life, which it'd be pretty awesome to get more genes into this combination. But you know, since I have some normals, I can actually breed this to some normals and get, you know, a whole bunch of different combinations out of this, which is pretty awesome. It'd be pretty awesome to actually get, you know, some other genes into this. I'm not sure how many more genes I could actually put into this without really muddying it out. That's kind of the problem, getting too many genes in your ball pythons. But I just thought I'd show you my only 2 holdbacks of the year. Sometimes it's so hard to figure out what you want to keep, what you want to hold back, and kind of what you're shooting for as far as building your collection. So that is pretty much it as far as holdbacks. Hopefully now that if you actually buy a snake, you know what a holdback is. It's definitely usually something that's a little bit bigger. I'd say most holdbacks that you find will be about this size, you know, probably a few hundred grams. Someone that, you know, grew it up a little bit, was going to hold it back, and they decided, all right, I'm just going to sell this instead of holding it back. So that is what a holdback is. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.